You've been doing it wrong this whole time, and Grandma knew better. While we spend money on fancy gadgets, harsh chemicals, and single-use products, she solved everyday problems with stuff already sitting in the kitchen drawer. From removing water rings with mayonnaise to sharpening knives with a matchbook, these forgotten hacks don't just work, they still beat most modern solutions. In this video, we're unlocking 10 genius tricks that kept Grandma's home spotless, cozy, and running like clockwork, without wasting a dime. Number 1. Vinegar and newsprint window polish. Granny didn't waste her money on branded window sprays that promised streak-free shine, but delivered chemical fumes and smears. Instead, she relied on 3 humble ingredients: white vinegar, warm water, and cornstarch. She'd pour 1 part vinegar and 2 parts warm water into a clean ketchup bottle, then add a spoonful of cornstarch to the mix and shake it well. That last part wasn't optional. Cornstarch thickened the solution just enough to prevent it from running down the glass before it had time to work. For wiping, she never used paper towels or microfiber cloths. Yesterday's newspaper was the tool of choice. The soy ink gave the paper a gentle, abrasive quality, making it perfect for scrubbing without scratching the surface. She would spray the glass, crumple the paper into a ball, and wipe in big, overlapping S-strokes, finishing with a dry section of the paper to buff everything to a shine. It worked brilliantly on mirrors, car windows, storm doors, and even grimy oven glass. The vinegar tackled hard water spots, nicotine film, and oily fingerprints with ease. And unlike commercial sprays, this mix didn't leave behind a film that attracts more dust. It was fragrance-free, lint-free, and cost just a few cents to make. Plus, it worked just as well during winter when condensation stains the inside of windows, or in summer when bugs leave streaks. People today spend a small fortune on cleaning supplies, but Granny knew better. When the goal is clear, gleaming glass, there's no reason to reach beyond your pantry. If you can see the garden clearly through the window afterward, that's the sign you've done it right. Number 2. Salt and lemon rust eraser. For Granny, rust wasn't a reason to throw something away. It was a reason to reach for salt and a lemon. She handled rusty garden shears, tarnished pans, and old metal furniture with one simple method. First, she would generously sprinkle kosher salt over the rusted area. Unlike table salt, kosher salt has larger, coarser crystals that act like a gentle abrasive, perfect for scrubbing off surface corrosion without damaging the metal underneath. Then she'd cut a lemon in half, squeeze it just enough to wet the salt, and use the lemon rind itself as a scrubber. The citric acid in the lemon reacts chemically with the iron oxide. That's what rust is, and breaks it down while the salt helps lift it away. She'd let the mixture sit for 5 to 10 minutes, then scrub a bit more and rinse thoroughly with water. For cookware, she'd immediately dry it with a dish towel and apply a whisper-thin layer of oil to protect the clean surface from new moisture. For garden tools or patio furniture, she'd finish with a clear coat of wax or oil to seal the metal. This DIY rust remover didn't require rubber gloves, didn't stink up the kitchen with fumes, and didn't cost a dime if you already had lemons and salt. And it wasn't just for rust. This same combo worked on tea-stained mugs, tarnished jewelry, and even soap scum on faucets. The simplicity of the ingredients and the effectiveness of the result made it one of Granny's most trusted hacks. It's a perfect example of how a little pantry science can save a lot of money and extend the life of everyday items. Number 3. Bread slice shard sweeper. When a glass broke in the kitchen, most folks would panic, run for the vacuum, or cautiously sweep while still missing half the slivers. Not Grandma. She knew that even tiny shards can hide in floor grooves, cling to grout, or stick to socks. Her trick? A slice of soft white sandwich bread. It sounds too simple to be real, but it worked every time. She'd flatten the bread in her hand and gently press it onto the floor where the glass had shattered. The porous structure of the bread absorbed static and clung to even the smallest, nearly invisible pieces of glass. This method worked especially well on tile and linoleum, where broom bristles can skip over cracks. After a careful pat down, the bread slice, now full of dangerous little shards, went straight into the trash. To be sure she'd gotten everything, she'd grab a flashlight and sweep its beam low across the floor, checking for any remaining sparkle. If anything remained, she'd dab over it again with a damp paper towel just to be safe. This trick saved bare feet more than once, especially in households with crawling toddlers or curious pets. Unlike vacuums, it didn't blow shards around. Unlike mops, it didn't push fragments into corners. And unlike sponges or rags, the bread could be safely discarded, no cleanup needed. It was one of those old-school solutions that required no batteries, no fancy attachments, and no user manual, just common sense and a slice of what you already had in the bread box. Number 4, coffee ground fridge deodorizer. Granny never liked waste, so used coffee grounds always found a second life in her kitchen. One of her favorite reuses? Deodorizing the fridge. After brewing her morning pot, she'd spread the used grounds in a thin layer on a cookie sheet and dry them in the oven at low heat, about 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. Once completely dry, she'd scoop them into a shallow ceramic dish and place it on the top shelf of the fridge. Unlike baking soda, which passively absorbs odors, coffee grounds actively neutralize sulfur compounds, the kinds of smells you get from garlic, onions, and spoiled leftovers. The grounds could work for up to 2 weeks before needing a refresh. But Granny didn't stop there. Once they had done their time in the fridge, the used grounds often ended up in the garden. Roses and azaleas, in particular, thrived with the slight boost of acidity. She also used the grounds to clean greasy pans and to exfoliate her hands after working in the soil. As a fridge freshener, coffee grounds are safer than chemical deodorizers, more effective than baking soda, and totally free if you drink coffee daily. There's no plastic, no scent, and no spill risk. And the bonus is, every time you open the fridge, you get a faint whiff of roasted beans instead of last night's tuna salad. This one hack, passed down from Granny's generation, is still quietly beating store-bought solutions in thousands of homes today. Number 5, foil dryer ball anti-cling. Granny's approach to laundry was simple, frugal, and remarkably effective. She never liked dryer sheets. They cost money, left residue on the lint trap, and gave clothes an artificial smell. Instead, she relied on plain old aluminum foil. She'd take a standard-sized sheet, crumple it into a tight ball, and roll it in her hands until it was roughly the size of a walnut. Then she'd smooth the outside so there were no sharp points and toss 2 of these foil balls into the dryer with her wet clothes. The science behind it is surprisingly solid. The metal conducts electricity and dissipates static buildup during the tumbling cycle. That means no more socks stuck to shirts or dresses that cling to your legs. The same 2 foil balls could be reused for up to 60 loads before needing replacement. They were safe for all fabrics, didn't interfere with moisture sensors, and unlike dryer sheets, they didn't clog vents or leave waxy coatings. Clothes came out soft, static-free, and scent-neutral, perfect for sensitive skin or people who didn't want overpowering fragrances. Plus, it saved money in the long run and cut down on disposable waste. Granny's laundry room might have been old-fashioned, but her methods were clever and grounded in real results. The foil dryer ball is a hack that's making a serious comeback for good reason. Number 6, mayonnaise water ring rescue. It's the kind of damage that feels permanent. A cold glass of lemonade, a forgotten mug of tea, and suddenly there's a pale, ghost-like ring on your beloved wooden table. Most people panic and reach for sanding pads or overpriced furniture refinishing kits. Not Grandma. She turned to the kitchen and grabbed the mayonnaise. Specifically, full-fat mayo. Not the light version, and definitely not the olive oil blend. She'd spoon out just enough to cover the mark, spread it evenly across the white ring, and place a square of wax paper on top. Then she'd set a hardcover book over the area to provide gentle pressure overnight. While you slept, the natural oils in the mayonnaise seeped into the wood, replenishing moisture in the finish. Meanwhile, the trace vinegar worked silently to draw out water vapor trapped under the varnish, the true culprit behind the ring. In the morning, she'd peel back the paper, wipe the area clean with a soft cloth, and gently buff in small circles. In many cases, the mark would be gone or dramatically faded. If any cloudiness lingered, she'd repeat the process or follow up with a touch of furniture polish to blend the repaired spot with the rest of the surface. This trick works on everything from vintage dressers to modern dining tables, and it's gentle enough that it won't harm the finish like sanding or alcohol-based cleaners might. The beauty of it? You don't need a woodworking degree or a trip to the hardware store. You just need something already sitting in your fridge. It's a fix that combines patience, practicality, and the kind of quiet home wisdom that's nearly been forgotten, until you see the table gleaming again like the ring was never there to begin with. Number 7, baking soda boiling water drain flush. If the sink started draining slowly, Grandma didn't panic or call a plumber. She certainly didn't rely on caustic gels or foaming chemical cocktails that make your kitchen smell like a science experiment. Instead, she reached for a box of baking soda, a jug of vinegar, and her trusty kettle. First, she'd dump half a cup of baking soda directly into the drain. That powdery white miracle went to work loosening greasy buildup and food gunk. While the soda settled into the pipe's bends, she brought a full kettle of water to a roaring boil, then poured it straight down after the soda. The hot water began to melt away residue clinging to the inside of the pipes. Next came the real magic. Half a cup of white vinegar poured in slowly. Almost immediately, fizzy bubbling erupted from the drain, a sure sign of the chemical reaction happening below. She'd quickly plug the drain with an old rag or a plate to trap the fizz and push it down the line. The bubbling mixture helped dislodge stubborn grime, while the heat broke down congealed fats that clung to the pipes. After 10 minutes of letting the solution work, she'd follow it with a final flush of boiling water, washing away everything the foam had lifted. This method was not only effective, but also completely safe for septic tanks, and it didn't corrode older plumbing. Best of all, it used nothing you wouldn't already find in a kitchen cabinet. No residue, no lingering fumes, and no expensive solutions. Just a time-tested, foolproof way to clear the mess and keep water flowing like it should. Number 8. Sunlight and Salt Wood Board Sanitizer. Plastic cutting boards might be easy to toss in the dishwasher, but they stain, crack, and retain odors over time. Grandma stuck with heavy wooden boards, the kind that last for decades if you know how to care for them. Her routine started with coarse salt, sprinkled liberally across the surface. Then she'd cut a lemon in half and use the exposed flesh to scrub the salt into the board. The salt acted as a gentle abrasive, pulling out pigments from berries or meat and lifting away food particles. Meanwhile, the lemon juice worked as a natural disinfectant, killing off bacteria and neutralizing strong smells like garlic or onion. After scrubbing, she'd rinse the board and pat it dry with a towel. But here's the twist. She'd then place it outside in direct sunlight for an hour or so. The sun's UV rays provided a natural sterilization process that no spray bottle could match. It killed off lingering microbes and helped evaporate moisture deep within the wood fibers. Once the board was bone dry, she'd warm up a spoonful of coconut oil and rub it into the surface using a soft rag or even a bare hand. This step restored the wood's elasticity and created a slight moisture barrier to prevent future cracking or warping. With this simple spa day treatment, her cutting board stayed smooth, odor-free, and fully functional for years, long after most plastic ones had been tossed. It was low effort, zero waste, and required nothing more than what she already had in her kitchen and garden. It was a ritual of care that added years to her tools and flavor to her food. Number 9. Matchbook Strike Knife Sharpener. Dull knives were never tolerated in Grandma's kitchen. Not because they were inconvenient, but because she knew a dull blade was more dangerous than a sharp one. But she didn't have high-tech sharpening tools or fancy whetstones. What she had was a cardboard matchbook and a coffee mug. The back of most matchbooks features a dark sandy strip, technically coated in magnetite, the same material found in many ceramic honing rods. She'd take her paring knife and gently run the edge across this striking surface at about a 15-degree angle, 5 times per side. No heavy pressure needed, just enough to coax the burrs back into alignment. This wasn't meant to replace a full sharpening, but for everyday maintenance, it was perfect. And if she needed a finer polish, she flipped over a ceramic mug and used the unglazed ring on the bottom. 3 or 4 passes along that rough ring smoothed out the edge, making the knife glide like new again. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. With this method, she could keep all her knives in great shape in under 2 minutes. No special equipment, no electricity, and no cost. It was the kind of maintenance you barely noticed, until you realized how easily her knives sliced through a ripe tomato without crushing it. And the best part, she taught everyone around her to do the same, because keeping your tools sharp is part of keeping a household sharp. Number 10. Beeswax Infused Cotton Draft Stopper. Long before weather stripping kits and fancy foam seals, Grandma had her own way of blocking out drafts, and it came from the sewing basket and the pantry. She'd take the sleeve of an old flannel shirt, stitch one end shut, and fill it with a mixture of dry rice and grated beeswax. The rice gave the draft stopper weight and structure, allowing it to mold perfectly to the bottom of windows or doors. The beeswax, that was the real secret. When the indoor temperature rose, even from just the warmth of the room, the wax softened slightly and created a gentle seal along the sill or threshold. It didn't just stop cold air, it also blocked dust and moisture during spring storms. If the night was particularly cold, she'd pop the stopper in the microwave for 30 seconds. The rice held heat, turning it into a soothing foot warmer she'd tuck at the base of her reading chair. This one project saved on heating bills, added charm to the room, and reused scraps and leftovers that otherwise would have gone to waste. And when the beeswax scent began to fade, she simply added a few drops of essential oil to the fabric, and the cozy barrier doubled as a subtle air freshener. It's hard to believe something so effective came from shirt sleeves, rice, and a candle nub, but Grandma didn't believe in waste. She believed in solutions, stitched and sealed with care.